All right, so here's your study guide for quiz 12. And problem number 1 asks you to find the value of x. If necessary, round your answer to the nearest tenth. Figure is not drawn to scale. All right, so we have a secant and a tangent. So the rule is that we take the entire length of the secant, this piece right here, all right, 7 plus 14, which is 21. We multiply it by this outside piece, which is 7, and we set it equal to the tangent piece squared. All right, now we're going to solve for x. So 21 times 7 is 147 is equal to x squared. And then we find the square root of each side. And 12.1 is equal to x. So we go answer choice D. Problem number 2, find the value of x. If necessary, round your answer to the nearest tenth. The figure is not drawn to scale. In this case, we have two chords that intersect inside of a circle. So we said that the product of the segments are equal to each other. So we've got an x times 7, which is 7x, equal to 8 times 21. So our 7x is equal to 168. And you can divide both sides by 7. So our x is equal to 24. All right, problem number 3, we have two secants that intersect outside of this circle. Told that a to b is equal to 10, b to c is equal to 6, c to d is equal to 9, and we're solving for x. So we said yesterday that the entire secant, which is x plus 9, times its exterior piece, which is 9, is equal to the other entire secant, which is 10 plus 6, 16, times its exterior piece, which is 6. So we've got to do the distributive property here. So x times 9 is 9x, and 9 times 9 is 81, and that's equal to 16 times 6, which is 96. Going to subtract 81 from each side. So the 9x is equal to 15. And then we're going to divide both sides by 9. So our x equals 1.7. All right, in problem number 4, the figure consists of a chord, a secant, and a tangent to the circle, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So what you've got in this picture is this secant here, AB, and a tangent. But you don't know the length of the piece of the secant. So we're going to find that first, and then we're going to substitute that value and solve for x. So for right now, I'm going to call this piece from A to this point right here, from A to C. I'm going to call that y, because we have a formula for this. All right, we can say that this entire secant, which is y plus 3 plus 14, which is y plus 17, times the exterior piece, which is 14, is equal to the tangent squared, which is 18 squared. So we're going to do the distributive property right here. Y times 14 is 14y. And 17 times 14 is 238. And that's equal to 18 squared, which is 324. So we're going to subtract 238 from each side. And 14y is equal to 324 minus 238, which is 86. And we're going to divide each side by 14. So our y is equal to 6.1. All right, so now we're going back in here inside of this circle. And I'm going to replace the y, or I'm going to substitute a 6.1. Now we have a chord intersecting another chord. And the product of the segments are congruent. So what we end up with is 8 times x, which is 8x, equal to 6.1 times 3, which is 18.4. I can divide each side by 8, and x is equal to 2.3. So we had to create this y right here so that we could solve for this piece of the secant, which is also a piece of the tangent or chord that we needed to solve for x. All right, problem number 5. Find the diameter of the circle for B to C. BC equals 10. B to C is 10. D to C is 33. 33. And we're going to round this to the nearest tenth. So what we've got here is C to D is a tangent. So we're going to draw in this piece right here that's going to represent a radius. Which creates a right angle. And I'm going to label that piece R. And then I'm going to label this piece down here R as well, because it represents the radius. So in this right triangle, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. We're going to say that a leg squared, R squared, plus 33 squared is equal to R plus 10 squared. So r squared plus 1089 is equal to r plus 10 times r plus 10. That's r squared plus 20r plus 100. All right, that's when we take r plus 10 times r plus 10, and we do the distributive property twice. We get r squared plus 10r, and then we distribute the 10, and we get another plus 10r, and we get plus 100, and we combine these inside terms, and we get r squared plus 20r plus 100. All right, so in this equation now, we're solving for the radius so that we can double it to find the diameter. So these two r squareds cancel. Can subtract 100 from each side. And that 1089 minus 100 is 989. And it's equal to 20r. So if we divide both sides by 20, $49.5 is equal to r. Now, that's the radius, okay? And they're asking for the diameter. So the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. And 49.5 times 2 equals 98.9. Problem number 6. Find AB, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So where segment AB is, I'm going to put an X. So what we have is a secant and a tangent. So the entire secant, which is x plus 10, times the exterior piece of the secant, which is x, is equal to the tangent squared. So 225. So we got to distribute over here. So x times x is x squared plus 10 times x is 10x. That's equal to 225. Got to subtract 225 from each side. And our x squared minus 10x, x squared plus 10x minus 225 is equal to 0. So we've got a trinomial. And like I said yesterday, we have to identify the a, b, and the c in this trinomial. So our a value is equal to whatever's in front of the x squared. That's a 1. Our b value is equal to whatever's in front of the x. That's a 10. And our c is equal to the constant, which is negative 225. And then we're going to use the quadratic formula. And that quadratic formula is x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So we're going to take this a, b, and c value, and we're going to substitute it into this equation so that we can solve for x. So our x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 225. And we're going to divide all of that by 2 times a, which is 2 times 1, which is 2. So all of this is equal to negative 10 plus or minus. I'm going to take 10 squared, which is 100, minus 4 times 1 times 225 negative, and we get 1,000. And the square root of that 1,000 is 31.6. And that's all over 2. So what that means is our x is equal to negative 10 plus 31.6 divided by 2, or it's equal to negative 10 minus 31.6 divided by 2. Now, negative 10 minus 31 divided by 2 is going to equal a negative number. And this piece here, this x, can't be a negative number. So we're not going to use this portion. So in your calculator, you can take 10 negative plus 31.6 equals, and divide it by 2, and we get 10.8. So this x right here, 10.8. All right. Now, problem number 7. Write the standard equation for the circle. Standard equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. So if we're given the center and we're given the radius, our equation is going to be x and the opposite of the x at the center, so plus 8, squared plus y and the opposite of the y at the center, which is negative 3, squared, equal to the radius squared. And 7 squared is 49. All right, problem number 8 asks you to find the center and the radius of the circle with the equation. Look, our center, the coordinates of our center, our x coordinate at the center is the opposite of what's in the parentheses with the x. So negative 2. Our y coordinate at the center is what's in the parentheses with the y. Oops, right here. And that's a positive 8. I'm sorry, the opposite of what's in there with the y. So that's a positive 8. And then our radius is whatever's out here, or I'm sorry, the square root of whatever's out here. So the square root of 49 is equal to 7. All right, and problems number 8 and 9, those are very similar. And for problems 9 and 10. In both of these problems, they give us the center and they give us a point on the line. What we have to do is use this formula to find the radius. And then once we have the radius, we can do exactly what we did right here for number 7 and write the equation. So for number 9 here, what is the equation of the circle with the center? This is our H, this is our K, this is an X, and this is a Y. We're going to use the equation of a circle to find the radius by substitution. So we're going to take the X, which is -3, minus H at the center, so we're going to go -2, squared plus our Y value on the circle, which is 1, minus the K at the center, which is -2. We're going to square it, and that's equal to the radius squared. So -3 minus 2 is -5, squared is 25. 1 minus -2, which is 1 plus 2, is 3 squared, which is 9, and that's equal to r squared. So 25 plus 9, 34 equals r squared. And if we find the square root of both sides, 5.8 is equal to the radius. So when we write this equation, we're going to say, we're going back to using this format up here, standard form. We're going to say that x and the opposite of the x at the center. So our center's at 2, -2, so x minus 2 squared plus y, and the opposite of the y value at the center, which is plus 2 squared, equals r squared. Well, right back here, we said that 34 equaled r squared. So the formula calls for r squared, so we're just going to use the 34. And there's your equation of a circle that has a center at 2, -2, and it passes through -3, 1. All right, so then problem 10 is the same concept. In problem number 10, again, here's your H and K, here's your X and Y. We're going to find the radius first. So we go -6 minus 0 squared plus -8 minus 0 squared equals r squared. So -6 minus 0 is -6, squared is 36. And -8 minus 0 is -8, squared is 64. That equals r squared. So 100 equals r squared. And we can find the square root of each side. So 10 is equal to r. Now we're going to use those values to write this equation. So we said earlier that if we take x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals the radius squared. Well, if the radius is 10, then the radius squared is 100. And then we clean this equation up. All right. X minus 0 is x, squared is x squared. Y minus 0 is y, squared is y squared. And that's equal to the radius squared, which is 100. All right, so that concludes your study guide for quiz 12, which will be tomorrow.